Today I screwed up by starting a cult. Well, this actually happened to me about 15 years ago. I was living with my best friend and his family at the time. I was working full-time and going to school full-time. He was just getting his business off the ground. My friend, Kevin, is absolutely brilliant academically. He's got a master's degree in some specialized engineering and can design robots and specialized parts for multi-million-dollar machines. His wife, Alice, has a master's in accounting and fancy numbers math and can do math that's miles above what I can even imagine. They are two of the most intelligent people I know, and yet they are pretty dumb. They've nearly fallen for rent scams, her parents saved them, email phishing, her boss saved them, charity scams, I saved them, and a few other very obvious scams. Like, I love them to death, but they are the type of people that need a lot of support. Now, they are also the nicest people I know. Hearts of gold, regularly giving their time and money to helping people in need, despite the fact everyone pointing out they're actually in huge debt themselves. Now, because of this, they are surrounded by a group of amazing people. They have a very strong group of support. They both come from large, extended families who remained close and have tons of wonderful friends. They have helped me so much over the years. I would do anything to help them too. Now, Kevin and Alice were part of a pretty large church. I attended regularly, but I largely was on the outside looking in. Life kept me too busy. Kevin and Alice had been part of that church for their whole lives. Their parents had both been going there since before they were born. It was a regular church. The people were all nice, and they ran a lot of programs that helped people leaving domestic violence, and they held regular offerings in order to help members of the community who were struggling. If the church found out that someone in the town has lost a family member, they would reach out and make sure the family had food, clothes, support, and whatever they needed. Everything was going really well. One day, I was at the church, and the church announced that the pastor was leaving. That wasn't a surprise to anyone. He was old, and his two sons had both moved to Europe, so his heart was overseas already. Now, I didn't think much of it, but it started a chain reaction that made a lot of attendees uncomfortable. I saw some political maneuvering happening in the church, and eventually the church named a new pastor, a social worker who had just finished seminary. So great, they got a replacement and they can keep the church going, right? Yeah, well, this is where everything just falls apart. The new pastor had been attending their whole lives and was mostly tolerated by everyone. They were a member of the New Democratic Party, which has become a very left-wing party, and began using the pulpit to spread very political messaging. The church elders sincerely believed that the new pastor was the right choice in leading the church body down a path to reconciliation with indigenous peoples, but quite honestly, didn't realize they should have consulted us first. That's where the first rift started. The indigenous congregants began to push back against some of the white savior messaging, and it spiraled from there. You know, I'm always skeptical about this sort of stuff here.
They didn't consult us first with the messaging they're trying to deliver.
Like what? That indigenous people should be respected? And we should acknowledge the history that they've suffered? Oh no, we're falling into the rabbit hole. Escape! Escape! Read the story more! Within about 18 months, the church was split. Some were supporting the new pastor, other groups had clung to some right-wing BS shepherding doctrine, but most people just wanted to go back to doing what the church had always done without the political distractions. So enter Roger. Roger had been attending for about a decade, and he stood out at that very moment. He was tall, he was a beautiful man, he was incredibly articulate, he oozed quiet charisma. When the dude talked, people listened. He was one of the head managers at the regional industry. The guy had it all. He drove a fancy car, way too fast, dangerously fast. He had a nice house. Heck, he even married the nicest lady ever. He was well admired and well respected, but he struggled with reading people's social cues. I, and many others, wondered at points if he was a sociopath, but after getting to know him, he was probably just a bit on the spectrum. Not to give too many spoilers, but turns out they were right the first time. So Roger was one of the active voices during the split. People began to flock to him during the meetings, and he was getting more and more calls to lead various groups and ministries. He called people on their BS and found himself getting ostracized by the people attempting to play group politics. He did take it hard, but kept doing what he was doing. Kevin and Alice were the biggest supporters of Roger. Roger was really good with my friend and eventually contracted Kevin to work for the regional industry. Kevin eventually asked Roger to mentor him, and Roger agreed. So that's how Kevin and Roger became really close. Alice became really close with Roger's wife, as a result. They saw each other multiple times per week. They always seemed to be planning their next activity or talking something work-related. I'd join them on occasional, but mostly kept to my studies and work. We'd all eat together, and maybe 2 to 3 times a week. Everyone got along fine. Even today, I'm not friends with Roger, but we still message each other if we need something. So at one of these meals, they were talking about the new pastor's political ramblings during the sermons. That's when I came up with the, in hindsight, worst suggestion. Honestly, Roger, why don't you just have your own Sunday service? I said it flippantly. I wasn't speaking to be serious. Alice loved the idea, though. She got so excited. Kevin liked it. Roger wasn't opposed. It logically made sense. It was decided by the end of the meal, we were going to make a home church. He wouldn't separate from the main church, but we would let Roger lead a separate Sunday service from his living room. We got to work. Well, mostly Roger did. And started to spread the word. First week, 6 people showed up. Second week, 25 did. Way too cramped that week. We started getting 15-ish people coming a week. They were mostly the young adults from the church. They craved having the stability. It grew from there. Roger started a men's group and his wife started a women's group. We did group activities. We created our own mini activities. We did everything. I wasn't super involved and ended up taking a 3-month work term elsewhere in the world, roughly 2 to 3 months after everything started. But I got an email during that time asking to meet with the elders of the original church. Super nice guys. Most are still good friends of mine. And I agreed to meet them a week after I got back. At the meeting, they asked a lot of questions. They asked who was the spiritual leader of Kevin. I told them Roger was. They asked me whose Kevin's emotional support was. I told them Roger's was. They asked me who Kevin's financial support came from. I told them Roger was. I realized during that talk the mistake we had made. Kevin was completely reliant on Roger for everything. It wasn't just Kevin either. There was about a dozen other people who were in that same position. Their entire lives were dependent on one man, and that one man had the ability to completely destroy them. It went well beyond that. There was no accountability. Roger had even begun moving a bunch of the young guys into his rental properties. He had one house for young women and one house for young men. Him and his wife would go there daily to guide them and help them. So yeah, there were a bunch of other red flags we had missed. I knew Roger pretty well at this point. I knew he had done that to people already. Roger had a temper and had no problem bringing consequences to people who crossed them. The first guy had done poor/lazy work for Roger. The second guy had attempted to intimately harass Roger's daughter. Both relied on Roger for work and emotional support. Both found themselves out of work and ostracized from the community when they crossed Roger. Okay, well, to be fair, that second guy sounds like he deserves it. The realization of how much power Roger had scared me. Roger was a good guy. He still is. But there was just too much control and influence in his hands without any accountability or checks in place. He ran a community by himself without anyone being able to stop him. I was legit scared. I realized I screwed up in helping get this group off the ground. I wasn't wrong to have the group. It was wrong not to have safeguards in place. I talked to Kevin and Alice about it that evening. Kevin was about to brush it off. The realization of how vulnerable they were freaked Alice out to the point where she begged Kevin to expand his business beyond the industry's contracts. So Kevin agreed with her. Thank heavens, the business is much healthier for it now. And that started a process in which they re-established social connections beyond the group. I called Roger to set up a time to meet with him to confront him. The elders beat me to it. Roger was freaked out to realize he had accidentally started a cult, so he had begun the work to legitimize the group. The elders worked with him and the group formally disconnected from the church and joined a denomination of churches to provide oversight and accountability. Roger kept the group going, but did it with support. The group is still going strong today. Kevin and Alice are still part of it. Roger stepped back last year due to burnout, but is still part of it too. I'm not, but I still am besties with Kevin and Alice. Kevin was even a groomsman at my wedding, and Alice was a bridesmaid. We can look back at it now and laugh at the time we accidentally started a cult. Some people read this wondering, what the frick did I just read? Yeah, right? The whole thing sounds weird, immature, and codependent from all parties involved. Yeah, that's kind of how cults are a thing. Welcome to Cults 101. Preying on the easily susceptible and those desperate to belong to in something. Honestly, this has got to be the best ending ever though for someone like Roger, who is clearly in control of everyone here, to welcome essentially stepping down from his ivory tower. I'm sure you'll like this comment here, hoping there was something more obscene going on. But oh, don't you worry. There's plenty more insane people for us to check out online. To do that, we go over to Am I the A-hole? The story is not so much a two-parter, but a satisfying Jerry Springer moment in the comments where Opie's brother comes by to drop a dose of truth. Am I the a-hole for calling the C word to my future sister-in-law after she tried to gain sympathy with my miscarriage? I'm sorry if this seems all over the place. I am just so mad that everyone is siding with her. My future sister-in-law, Ella, 30 female, is your typical annoyingly bubbly girl. She is always happy and smiling, caring and compassionate. My brother, 37 male, is foolishly in love with her, and it seems like the rest of my family is wrapped around her finger. Now my brother and I, a 34 female, grew up very close. When we were 10 and 7 years old, our father passed away, and our mother, now 69, struggled as a single mother until she met our stepfather, who is truly an amazing person. They had our little brother, who's now 28, who happens to be Ella's best friend, and the reason she met our brother. 28 days ago, my husband, Mark, 34 male, and I tragically lost our pregnancy at 22 weeks. It was devastating then, and it still is. I haven't been ready to talk to my therapist about it yet. This was our first pregnancy that progressed this far, so we were filled with hope. Since the loss, I made it clear that I didn't want to talk to anyone and that I didn't want any visits. However, Ella keeps sending deliveries of food every now and then with stupid messages like, "You are cared for," and "We're here for you, thinking of you." Like, it infuriates me to hear Mark commenting on how nice and thoughtful she is. Last night, she asked me if she could come over with my mom and my brothers to quickly discuss something about their wedding. She apologized, saying she knew it wasn't the right time, but the wedding is only a month away, and this conversation couldn't be delayed any longer. In essence, Ella wants to postpone the wedding for another 6 months. It is a small affair hosted at a friend's place, and since she briefly explained the situation, the vendors are willing to change the date at a minimal cost. To paraphrase her, she said, "I don't feel this is the best time to have a wedding. I really want you at my wedding party, and I suspect you won't want to be around people asking you what happened." As if she knows what I want or don't want. Of course, everyone started going off about how such a great idea and how sweet that was of her moving a special date for her just to accommodate me. What made me snap was what she said next. "Whenever you feel up to it, we could have a girls' day to get you a new dress." Mine was pink and made specifically to fit my growing bump. I screamed at her that she was a "see you next Tuesday" for looking for sympathy at my expense, and that I hoped my brother and everyone else could see her for the conniving and manipulative piece of work she was. That the only girls' time I wanted to have is with my beloved girl that isn't with us anymore. All of them were stunned, and she ran out crying. My brother told me to seek therapy, and mom and little brother just left. Now this morning, my husband told me that while he understood and shared my grievance, I couldn't lash out on innocent people, that she only wanted to help. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Now, it's not at all surprising for Opie's character that they deleted themselves from this post before an actual verdict could be made by the subreddit system. Because everyone could agree that, like, yes, sorry for your loss, but this is literally the best thing Ella could have done in this situation. Sounds pretty clear to all of us that you just really hate the sister-in-law. To the point where I have to theorize that OP themselves is a bit of a manipulative, see you next Tuesday of her own. Probably only experienced friendships with other women that were backstabby of sorts. So here comes along Ella, being a genuinely nice person, and all OP can relate to that is, "You're only nice because you want something from me. Your friendliness is a lie. What are your secret desires?" But oh, if that ain't the cherry on top to why this OP's an a-hole, it's this part here. See, OP confessed, thanks to someone else source in the comment. OP says, "Why doesn't she understand? She lost a pregnancy earlier this year. She should have understood, right? She acted as if nothing happened. A weeks later of the incident, she was again being her usual self. I'm so mad at everyone." So not only was Ella trying to be nice, she completely understood your experience. Another commenter asking, "What has Ella done to you in the past that makes you believe she's looking for sympathy at your expense?" OP replies, again, not helping their case at all. "Nothing personal. She is just kind of the extrovert that wants you to feel welcome and always worrying if you need anything or help or whatever." So yeah, I think Ella just has an energy that OP doesn't like around her more than 5% of the time. Now, thank goodness for the power of screenshotting, because people were able to save some more info that was shared in the comments, specifically from the brother himself. Copying and pasting what he allegedly said. Hey, I'm the brother. Jesus Christ, Rachel. The next time you want to try to make yourself the victim, like you always do it on a site that I don't use almost every day. You can thank Ella for being the only reason I've even kept a relationship with you, because she has been that tolerant of your garbage. You've made it no secret that you hate her. But hey, smart of you to try and leave out how she's black, and you called her more than the C word, but I think letting everyone know the actual words you called her would not be allowed whatsoever on this sub. But I'll verify for everyone here, you're a bully, a racist, and an a-hole, and you always have been. And way to mention Ella's miscarriage, but not mention your own response to it, which was an eye roll and a smirk, and then making offhanded comments about how Ella should have been more careful because you thought her working out of the house was bad for the baby. You know what's bad for a baby? A garbage person like you. Delete my number. Delete Mom's number. Delete Ella's number. Go rot. Oh man, that was a lot to take in. I think we all need to take about 5 minutes to have a drink and recover from that one. Say, am I the a-hole for asking my wife's friend to sell me the breast milk she is not using? Gym bros, what the fuck? I, 35 male, am very into my bodybuilding. Frankly, for all intents and purposes, I am huge. My friend's wife, who's 35, has recently had a baby. My friend and his wife mentioned in passing that they are not best breastfeeding and instead using formula. I don't care the reasons why, and frankly, it is none of my business. However, it got me thinking. On the various bodybuilding forums I lurk on, I've read that breast milk is unparalleled as a bulking aid. I asked my friend's wife if I could have the breast milk she is producing and, most importantly, not using. She looked a little confused when I asked. I even offered to pay. She declined and said she didn't feel comfortable doing so, so I told her that it's not a perverted thing, as I'm honestly not really interested in women, or even blokes for that matter. If they can't lift or train as much as I do, I've got no interest in sharing my life with them. Ah, he's gym-sexual. The only gym I love starts with a G. They're now both avoiding me despite me texting to ask again and express my seriousness in this. Internet, you are a disturbing mistress. Well, with that mental bleaching out of the way, we return to true off my chest. My best friend got me fired for a guy. My best friend Ash, fake name, and I met in college when we were 17 and have been together ever since. We graduated together when Ash started working part-time with her post-graduation, and I went to my dream university. After 2 years, I came back and started working in a showroom near my house, and I also started meeting old friends again. 15 days after joining, we all went to one of our friends' engagements, and there, Ash told me that she is also looking for full-time work, so if there is any vacancy in my office, I can suggest her name. I said, okay, and the next day, when I reached the office, Ash was already there. Basically, Ash found the office number from Google early morning and had called a manager for a job query, and the manager called her for an interview. I wished luck to Ash, to which she replied that, "You have helped me a lot. Now I don't need your wishes." I said I didn't help her yet, and she said, "Exactly." She accused me of not helping her, even though I knew we had vacancy and I knew her condition. A condition I didn't know of. What is that condition? Well, Ash is from a middle-class family. Her father doesn't have a good job, so Ash had to bear the cost of her study, and she pays rent also. But I didn't have to go through all this hustle because my father is one of the 10 richest men of our town. So Ash got the job on her first day. She called me and said that we will keep our friendship outside the office gate. I was okay with it. We were doing well as colleagues, but one day, on a second day of my periods, all the sanitary pads disappeared from my locker. I called Ash for help, but she refused because of her no friendship inside the office gate policy. I then asked the guy Veer at the desk next to me for help, and he got me pads and chocolates. I thanked him and was going to talk to Ash, but the manager told me to go home. I asked him the reason, and he told me that somebody has complained to HR that Veer and I are having an affair. So HR fired me and Veer because Veer had brought feminine hygiene products for me. They said only boyfriends help in such a way, not colleagues. Now you're probably reading this thinking this sounds ridiculously fake. How could you get fired for getting sanitary products from a coworker? Well, as we read on, it's well into the update as well. My theory is that this is not a Western country, not to imply that only Western countries have appropriate workplace conditions. We still have child labor factories. But yeah, it's possible this is a country that is a far more restricting on social decorum in the workplace. Now, according to the company rule, if a company fires us before 4 months of joining, they have to give us full salary and PF. So Veer and I got our salary, of course. I talked to my father and Veer got a job in his company. I took a break from work for a while, and my father was trying to trace the person who made a false complaint against me. During this time, I started writing, which is my favorite work, and I also stopped hanging out with my friends, but a few days ago, I came to know from one of our mutual friends that all these allegations against me were made by Ash. I asked Ash if she did that to me, and to my surprise, she admitted that she indeed hid my pads and complained to HR. Ash had a crush on a guy from our ICD department. She befriended the guy and thought of proposing to him on Valentine's Day to date, but the guy asked Ash about me because he likes me. Ash was jealous of my life without any hustle, good looks, everyone's attention, and the guy she likes too. Why should I get everything? She thinks that it's my fault that I went to study in our dream university and I don't have to pay rent to my own father. But my father paid her graduation fees. Papa offered her to go to university with me, but her father refused. My mother gifted her a gold chain on her 18th birthday. I was very shy and never made any friends, so when Ash befriended me, I found it less difficult to be around people, and that's why my parents were grateful to Ash, and they did everything I told them to do for Ash. So yeah, overall, it started out as a terrible experience. Doesn't help for the OP that everyone assumes this is some creative writing exercise. How can you say you've never had friends, but also come home to a bunch of friends for their engagement? But yes, as some people might wonder, okay, well, why didn't she bother any other female co-workers? But brave enough to ask a guy who willingly goes out and buys her pads and a chocolate. Well, the OP says, I had only 2 female colleagues. Ash refused, and the other girl was busy making the bill because there were customers. I asked Veer because we work in the same department, and he's a married guy. And here we have a comment just exposing themselves not understanding what a period is. Oh, why couldn't you just go out and get them? Easy, you'd be fine. What do you mean your clothes will be stained as you're walking around and letting the blood just drip all over your clothes? No, that's not silly, nah. Anyway, a day later, the OP returns for a small update, also adding some missing points to give more depth to the situation. So Ash's father's had a quarrel with his wife in our house. He said that all this happened because of her, because she never paid attention to her daughter. He also slapped his wife and told me that he'll beat the hell out of Ash, also begging me not to go to court because of it. My god, dude. Imagine being in that situation. Please don't get my child into trouble. I'll beat them beyond an inch of their life. Yeah. My father told them not to pressure me, but still, they were convincing me not to go to court. So my father threw them both out of our house. I don't know what happened at Ash's house, but my father took us all to a nice hotel for dinner and we enjoyed family time. I also want to point out some highlights which may be necessary. Ash was the center of attention in college because she is bubbly, an outgoing person. I never made any friends in college by myself. I joined Ash's friend group in parties or for any other celebration. I used to go with Ash only. The result of my post-graduation is yet to come, so I joined that job because I wanted to utilize my free time. I will not go to that company again, and we live in a small town, so in a few days, all this news will spread everywhere, just like the news of me losing my job because of my affair spread. Ash's father refused to take my father's help for her dream university because he said that going to the dream university is a choice, not a necessity, and it was stupid to take so much money from someone for a choice. He also accepted my father's help for Ash's graduation under the condition that Ash has to return all the money. Also, I am not a creative writer. I write lyrics of songs. I am planning to start my studio once this matter is resolved, so it was not a creative writing, but a worst phase of my life, but y'all are free to not believe me. So that's it for now. I don't have any friends of my own, and I didn't want to tell my family how disturbed I am by Ash's betrayal, so I came here. And in another little short update, someone asking if Ash has faced any consequences? Well, finally, something's happened. Less than a day ago, I got a call from Ash's sister that Ash has been fired from her job, and they are also going to mention the reasons for Ash's dismissal, which means no salary and PF for her, and Ash will hardly get any job in this city. She said that her father beat Ash and locked her in the room. She told me that I should talk to Ash once and sort things outside the court. Maybe I will meet Ash in the evening or tomorrow. If anything happens after that, I will definitely let you guys know. Yeah, so it's a bit of a story that on one hand, I'm glad there's been some justice, but on the other hand, I'm kind of not surprised Ash has resorted to this sort of behavior based on the way she's treated at her own goddamn home. I mean, is it wrong to kind of feel a bit of pity for Ash in the situation. Though I think we can only imagine how Ash is going to spin this to put the blame on OP for everything that's happened to her as a result of, you know, her causing all this to happen. Because you can't be narcissistic if you acknowledge your problems. Anyway, friends, we'll end today's video there. Thank you as always for watching. Love your face for doing so. And until next time, you be good. Okay, bye-bye.